The city dates back 3,400 years to the reign of Amenhotep III, also known as Amenhotep the Magnificent.
Amenhotep III reigned for 38 and about 2/3 years, so a lengthy time, and he was probably somewhere around 10 to 12 years of age when he came to the throne.
A side lock of hair signifies a young pharaoh.
He was born at a time when Egypt had created an enormous empire that stretched all the way to northern Syria in the north to the Fifth Cataract on the Nile River in modern Sudan in the south.
Amenhotep III was the wealthiest king in ancient Egypt. He had more gold than anyone before or after.
He could just sit back and enjoy being king, the wealthiest king that Egypt had ever known. He used that opportunity to build things and put his name out there and connect himself to the gods.
Amenhotep III wanted to be remembered as an incarnation of the sun god. Egyptologists consider his reign as the high point of Egyptian art. He built most of the temples and palaces on the west bank of the Nile.
The only reason that he's not a sort of household name is because Ramses II wanted to be just as famous and actually stole many of his monuments and put his own name on them.
For the ancient Egyptians, gold was more than a precious metal.
Talk about gold and to have objects made of gold really relates to a king having the flesh of their gods. Tutankhamun has a solid gold coffin and a solid gold mask on top of his mummy because that gives him that gold flesh of the gods.
It has taken 7 months of labor to excavate this diverse industrial part of the city.
One area for storage, we found a big area for the storage of making sandals, also sewing clothing, precious stones for making necklaces and bracelets.
The artifacts from this site give Egyptologists more details about a pharaoh who ruled over 3,000 years ago.
Amenhotep III does emerge in many ways as someone who knew exactly how wealthy he really was in comparison to kings in the rest of the world.
To immortalize his magnificence, he erected 2 50-foot-high statues of himself, each from a single piece of quartzite stone brought from a quarry 400 miles away.
Amenhotep III shows himself seated with his wife, Queen T, on one side of his legs, and his mother, Mut-Emwia, on the other side of his legs. What's not very easily visible is that the feet of one of his daughters is also there on his lap.
An Egyptologist entering an excavated room works much like a crime scene investigator.
قدماء المصريين السور ماشي ازاي مستمر.
You want to see what the walls are resting on. Are they resting on an actual floor?
الفخارية العمل لازم يكون بقدر مهم جدا من الدقة. دول العمال المتمرسين الحرفيين الفنانين.
Then you're also looking at what kind of pottery is lying there.
We found a wine and also we found dry meat.
What the Egyptians would do would be to cook meat and then put the already cooked meat into jars that were then sealed.
The scores of precious objects uncovered point to a large, prosperous city.
لا خلاص احنا دي موجوده في مخزن هنا، احنا عملنا عليها دراسات كامله، لكن بلا شك ان هذه الاثار اللي طلع كلها حاجات ضخمه.
These molds are very exciting because they're just little fired clay molds that have been carefully carved. They have the amulets that come from these molds. So they can show you a mold and then they'll show you several examples of the actual amulets. This town is the first time that you walk into a single room and you find 5 ovens In the kitchen area,
ادي القش الرماد.
all of these craft specialization areas are divided up by these serpentine walls.
Serpentine walls, also known as sinusoidal walls, provide more stability and strength than a straight wall of the same bricks.
ادي الشكل اللي اتكلمنا عليه. مش بس استغل السور كزجزاجي بهذا الشكل للحماية، استغل الفراغات.
An area that was doing food production was then separated by a serpentine wall from an area that was making things like jewelry and amulets.
A rare find is an entire fish encrusted with gold that may have been used in ceremonies.
100 قالب اللي كان بيتعمل فيه التمائم. طلعنا حاجات كلها من الحاجات الثمينة اللي هي الأحجار الثمينة لعمل خواتم العقود اللي تمت.
The Nile River runs through Luxor. For the Egyptians, the Nile was the symbol of continuing life and procreation.
Amenhotep III emphasized that fertile nature of the Nile and the agricultural output that resulted from the Nile flood that took place every year. And the king wanted to be able to take credit for that.
But the most important thing are the statuettes of Queen T, the wife of Amenhotep III.
Queen T became sort of his soulmate, one might guess. They were really seen as a ruling couple.
Egyptian history is told by each pharaoh's reign.
There are two reigns here that we're really looking at closely that are associated with this new village. One is the time of Amenhotep III, his wife Queen T.
The second reign belonged to Akhenaten, or Amenhotep IV, and his wife, Queen Nefertiti.
It is fascinating to see how both of these kings actually included their family and their children in how they presented themselves. They wanted their children to be seen as different aspects of various goddesses.